Good evening, everyone, and welcome to January 24th regular meeting of Town Council. We'll start this meeting off with a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Okay, Councilor Riddick was the first one to the hand in the air. Is there any additions or deletions to the? I'd like to add one. And I'd like to talk about the speed limit in the alleys again. I did some research of my own and I would just like to get a little more information on it. So can we put that in there? We go to 10.15 on that. Is everybody good with that? Okay. Okay, so you want to redo your motion, Councilor Riddick, with the add addition?
I would be happy to.
Okay, Sandra?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, or Your Worship, can we add that at under unfinished business instead of under the bylaw?
Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's all bylaw there. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
That'll be fine. So the unfinished business be right after the bylaw? Okay.
And I'm adding it now. So if you want to refresh in a minute or two, it'll be there.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion with the addition? Carried. Thank you very much. And looking for a motion to adopt the minutes of our last regular meeting. Councilor Orwa, thank you very much. Any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll start with the correspondence. Anybody doing the correspondence?
Yeah, here I am, Your Worship.
Okay.
I just had to figure out how to unmute myself. I'm always struggling. Okay, this is a letter from the town of Tollfield to the Honorable Jason Kenney, Premier of Alberta. Dear Premier, Premier Kenney, since the availability of vaccines has been provided to Albertans, the message from yourself, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and the Health Minister has remained consistent. This message has been that all eligible individuals should receive the first available vaccine, and now this availability has extended to our youth. During the first availability of vaccine, rural Alberta felt that they were being slighted or ignored in not having vaccine provision to those who are unable to travel or not wanting to leave the comforts of their own community to truly do the right thing and become vaccinated. Many across rural Alberta, Tollfield included, reached out to advocate and make our voices heard in having this service provided in our communities through our very capable means, such as our pharmacies and competent pharmacists. Bluntly, your government is ignoring rural Alberta and creating barriers and hindrances for vaccine provision. Members of our community wanting to have their children vaccinated are being forced to drive between 50 and 70 kilometers one way to have this service provided. On top of this true inconvenience, the weather elements and poor road conditions are adding a further issue to what is already a stressful time for these parents. The decision of many is to not contend with these barriers, which is resulting in a lower vaccination rate in our rural locations. The path forward from our vantage point appears clear. Provide vaccine to our rural pharmacies to vaccinate our youth. Globally, we know that the way back to a normal life requires vaccination. In not having this ability in rural Alberta, the pandemic and its challenges to our healthcare system, economy, and Albertans' mental health will continue. Premier Kenney, please do not continue to ignore rural Alberta. We in the outlying centers have suffered deeply, and this stance only stands to hurt Alberta as a province on a longer-term basis. As a council and a community, we implore your government to take a stance and advocate for change. Sincerely, Deborah Duick, Mayor Tollfield.
Okay, I'll take a motion to receive and file first. Okay, Councilor Bullock, thank you very much. Sandra, you have your hand up. in the screen? No? That's mine. Sorry, again. Phil, what can you tell us about what's going on with vaccinations for the youth?
I had a long conversation with Councillor Rudick, and we have tossed a couple of emails back and forth through AHS, waiting to hear some response as to why the clinic here or why the health unit here is not I guess actively doing them. And correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Rudick, but we also talked about getting permission to actively advertise the youth clinics that are being done in our community over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks. As for pharmacies, because it is a completely, it's a more concentrated dose than the adult, it sounds like they don't want to have any confusion at the pharmacies with the adult dose versus the youth dose. So pharmacists don't see it like that, but that's what has come down from AHS to the pharmacies.
Okay, so I know you found that information regarding they don't want pharmacies, and it's not just the pharmacies in rural Alberta, it's all pharmacies for the youth dosage.
That's
okay,
correct.
did we contact the health unit and ask them why?
I haven't heard back from anybody through AHS. So,
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riddick, I know you've been working on this, so we'll get your input.
So I haven't spoken with anybody at the health unit, but I have spoken to 2 parents, one of whom is accessing the dates that were shared with us last week that are local vaccination for kids at the health unit, and another person that is not able to access them. So they are currently not advertised. They said that they advertise them the way that they usually do, which I would suggest is probably maybe the newspaper and or just luck of the draw of parents calling in. So their vaccine clinics are for all sorts of vaccinations. So the rollout for children has been completely different than adults, and it doesn't look like it will change. So it's unlikely that they would offer them in schools. So COVID vaccinations would not be offered in the school system based on the fact that most school boards have been reluctant to roll that out. So as it stands right now, in speaking with Director Rowe too, I'm not certain that changing the process is going to change the end result. But I do feel like a little bit of additional pressure or attention might change what they'll do in the future, because they certainly are not familiar with advertising. And if we share the information, I think that would reach people faster, because the dates that they had previously, I know that there are some youth that had vaccination at the clinic, but nobody that I've spoken with realized that they were offered locally, because anybody that I've spoken to, other than the 2 that I spoke to about this week's appointments, all of the other parents have gone out of town. So I'm not sure what we can do moving forward. They're happy to have us advertise as well. But like I said, I'm not certain that their methods are particularly widespread or accessible to parents.
So at the current time, are we advertising the clinic dates and that youth? Are we putting that out there? I thought that was direction we were taking after the Ledge meeting.
we haven't for this week, but we can we were waiting to hear from AHS if we were allowed to do that. We didn't want to cross any barriers with them with how it was being advertised. So we can certainly get that out for the next 2, which I think are in the first 2 weeks of February.
Okay, so I thought we did that. I don't know that when they advertised the dates that we weren't allowed to piggyback that. I didn't know that would be a problem. So I guess what we're saying here is let's advertise at least, you know, to help support anybody that's not looking in the right places, that that there is the chance they can get their kids vaccinated in those dates. Is there any other conversation? Anybody else want to go here before we go back to Councillor Riddick? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Riddick.
Sorry, I just was going to just for anybody that's watching today too, I'm not certain again how they're advertising, but the upcoming dates for vaccination are January 26th, February 3rd, 8th, and 21st. So what they had emailed back to me when I had asked previously is that we're welcome to share that information. However, it's not like they've given us a PDF or something that would be easy for our communications team to share. So it would be nice to be able to effectively share that. And I'll send another email requesting that they give us some kind of documentation that we could share. But it is a challenge. I think that's not what they're familiar with. So, I mean, if they're happy with us creating something, that would be fine. But again, there are some dates coming up.
Okay. So Councillor Warwa.
Okay, I mean, either way, I'm not willing to wait to see if they can pull it together. So let's just create and put it out there because I'm at this point much more confident with our ability to come up with a poster than they are, I guess. Typically, I don't feel as a council that we generally have to do a bunch of push when it comes to, medical. We usually leave that. But in this case, I think I would support us also writing a letter, because the fact is, this is their direction that they keep going with. And as long as they're going to continue to do that, they have to provide options in the rule. I understand we have options, but I think it's fair for us to officially write and say that we feel there is a gap in the communication, share that, and maybe even, letting them know that we see a need for more clinics here and in other rural locations, because that is their messaging. They haven't backed off on that. So it's not correct if we're not being able to access it rurally.
Okay, thank you. Director Rowe.
Your worship, just to clarify, are you suggesting that we just come up with something for our social media and our website to direct people to AHS, or are you thinking print media and the radio as well, that we look at that?
Well, I'm thinking that we could put it on the radio. We could put it in the newspaper, but for sure, let's put the dates and that you can get your youth vaccinated on these dates at the health unit. Put it on all our social media. I mean,
Okay,
it doesn't make any sense. I don't see why they'd be against it. I thought we were doing this. This is what I thought after the last meeting, that we were going to advertise those dates. So, I mean, I would encourage citizens of town to phone the health unit and ask them why they're not providing this on their own. Why, we're a hub for this whole part of the province around us. And why can't they have the vaccine for youth there? Doesn't make any sense. Does anybody else support a letter being written to the province, some similar to what Tofield had written? So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we're going to write a letter. 5, 6. Okay. So that's what we'll do. I think we'd make the information available to the radio station and to the newspaper. I don't think that we have to pay. I mean, it's a public service that they're offering to residents. I mean, it'd be all, be on their behalf. It would be good for their business. So anyway, let's let them know, Phil, the 2 media outlets, and let's get it up on our website. And we'll work on a letter starting tomorrow. Everybody okay with that? Okay, so I'll take we'll vote on the motion to receive and file. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up, Director Saski.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is the monthly cash statement for the month of December of 2021. We started the month with $9,333,000 in bank and savings. And the end of the month, we ended with $9,281,000 for a net decrease in cash of $52,500. Some of the major sources of cash in December were our grants in place of taxes payment for $968,000. So those are all paid up now. We also received $345,000 for a policing grant. Our major uses of cash were for our Southeast 17 project. So that was $69,707 and $373,000. Debenture payments of $205,000 and our quarterly requisition for education of $432,500.
Can you just give me the number again on the police grant?
The policing grant was precisely $345,664. So it used to be 2 grants, but now it's 1 grant altogether.
For the whole year?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the 30%?
Paul, do you have input on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's the regular grant that we get every year. We used to be 245,664 for a police officer grant and then $100,000 for another grant. And they just combined them into 1 grant. So it's the same amount we've been getting every year since I've been here. So I don't know if it represents that 30% or not.
Is it money that rolls from the feds to the province and the province divvies it back to us?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, this is a nice statement to be 52,500 down in 1 month. That's pretty good.
Not
I mean,
bad.
other than July when all the taxes are coming in, that's a pretty good month for us. Okay, thank you very much, Director Saskew. I'll take a motion for the information. Okay, Councillor Berry was on that one. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next up, Director Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an RCD for council. It's an amendment of the 2022 and 2023 capital budgets proposed by myself. The background is during the 2022 budget presentations, council approved the overlay valve and concrete works project located on 2 sections of 52nd Street as the 2022 capital works project and the forced main replacement as a 2023 capital works project. In November of 2021, the town of Vegreville applied to the Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater Partnership Grant for the forced main replacement and lagoon upgrade project. On January 10th, 2022, the town of Vegreville received information that the project qualifies for this funding and that the town of Vegreville will be notified once your project has been approved for funding. Due to the increase in repairs required on the 43-year-old line, it has been determined that this project needs to be completed as soon as possible. Under financial implications, you'll see the 2022 budget as it was approved, our 5-year plan. And on the next page, you will see the proposed amendment. And what is happening is the forced main replacement, as just explained, is moving to 2022, with 52nd Street moving to 2023. The recommendation is being made that Town Council approve the amendment of the 2022 and 2023 capital budgets to reflect that the forced main replacement in the amount of $2,850,000 will be the 2022 capital works project, and further that the 52nd Street overlay valve and concrete works project in the amount of $1,343,000 will be the 2023 capital works project.
Thank you, Director. Take a motion for the recommendation. Councillor Curtis moved on that one. Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Berry, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. On this, I sort of take a look at a risk analysis. And if we take the 2 projects, we can certainly understand that the force main, the probability of occurrence is actually beginning to be high. We've had a number of breakages and problems over the last few years. We know that it's 40-some years old. So the probability of something happening in the very near future is high, and the impact would be very high. Whereas we look at the other one, it's probably a medium that something's going to happen. There's probably a low that it would impact. So to me, it's clear we have to get that force main done.
Okay, thank you. Everybody else feels the same way? Okay, Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, I excuse me, echo what Councillor Berry is saying as well. You know, the environmental impact of this could be quite high, and just the hurdles to jump through and the approvals needed. I think waiting any time would be a bad idea. I think getting things going now and starting it as it is right now is probably the best best situation for the town.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, well, as long as everybody, in this community understands, that's the only way that the sanitary sewer leaves our community. And we've been flirting with danger, and we had another break in the line right at the lagoon this year. And so it is, we need to take a risk management approach here. And I feel comfortable with the conversation we had moving forward on the grant. So I think we can make this work. So all those in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is the interim CAO, Paul Casey.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a request for council decision for the appointment of the Chief Administrative Officer. And the proposal is to approve the appointment of Christopher Leggett as Chief Administrative Officer. Background is upon the announcement of the retirement of the previous town manager, Cliff Craig, council embarked on the recruitment of a new Chief Administrative Officer. An employment offer was made to Christopher Leggett and the employment contract has been signed. As per the MGA and the town's Chief Administrative Officer bylaw number 06218, Section 3B, council shall by resolution appoint a person to the position of Chief Administrative Officer and establish the terms and condition of the CAO's employment. The financial implication are the terms and conditions, including salary, are as part of the CAO contract. Communication, a formal announcement to the public was made on December 23rd, 2021, upon agreement of the offer of employment. Another announcement welcoming our new CEO will be sent out on our website and social media channels after Mr. Leggett starts his employment. And the recommendation is that Mr. Christopher Leggett be appointed as Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Vegreville with commencement date of January 31st, 2022, as per the terms and conditions of the employment agreement between the town and Mr. Leggett.
Okay, take a motion for the recommendation. Councillor Lemko, thank you very much. Any discussion? Paul, I heard you took Chris to the walk through the building and introduced him to some of the staff today.
Yeah, the ones that were there, I introduced him to. Unfortunately, Director Lefebvre wasn't there and Bob Pispelko wasn't there, but he was introduced to everybody else that was there. He's back in the office tomorrow having lunch with Sandra. So he's meeting with all the senior management this week for lunch. So Sandra tomorrow, and then I think Dale on Thursday, Phil on Wednesday, and Megan on Friday.
Good to hear. Okay, so any other comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And next up is the CAO bylaw.
Yes, Your Worship. This is a very long bylaw, so I'm just going to read the introduction and then just the main titles. I'm not going to read everything in this bylaw. So it's Vegreville bylaw number 01/2022. This bylaw number 01/2022 of the town of Vegreville in the province of Alberta to establish and define the duties and powers of the Chief Administrative Officer within the town of Vegreville. Whereas the Municipal Government Act Revised Statutes of Alberta 2000, Chapter M26, Section 205 requires that every council must establish by bylaw the position of Chief Administrative Officer. And whereas various sections of the Municipal Government Act of the Province of Alberta and other statutes of the Province of Alberta delineate the duties and responsibilities of the Chief Administrative Officer. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Vegreville enact as follows. 1, title. This bylaw may be cited as the Chief Administrative Officer, bracket CAO bylaw. 2, definitions, and there's a list of definitions. 3, appointment, and there's a list of items under appointment. 4, delegation of authority. This section allows the Chief Administrative Officer to delegate his authority to any other officer in any other town employee within the town. And they must delegate their authority should they have a medical or related absence longer than 3 consecutive days. Section 5 is responsibility and authority and lays out all the responsibility and authority for the CAO. and the authority given to him under the MGA. Personal administration lays out things related to supervising the administration's, all of the staff of the town. Then there's a section 7 on the conduct of the chief administrative officer, which has a number of items. Number 8 is council related responsibilities. Basically, the CAO is responsible to the council of the town of Vegreville for the overall administration of municipal operations of the town. Then there's a section 9 on management and administration of personnel, another section on how the CAO is going to manage the staff of the town. Number 10 is budget responsibility, which talks about the CAO being responsible for ensuring the development of the budget and having it ultimately delivered to council and approved. Number 11, third-party relationships, acting as a liaison between local governments at provincial or federal governments. Number 12, some other duties. Number 11, purchasing authority. This one basically says the chief administrative officer is responsible for all purchasing of the town of Vegreville, ultimately rests on his shoulder. Number 14 is emergency operations. Section 14.1 of this gives the CAO the approval to authorize and approve any necessary agreements or purchases for emergency expenditures in an approved budget that does not exceed $100,000. If it goes over that, it must come to council. Number 15 is legal matters, which gives the CAO the authority to seek legal counsel where required. Number 16 is contracts and agreements, which allows the CAO to enter into all contracts for the town. Number 17 is signing authority, which gives the CAO the authority to delegate authority for signing agreements and contracts and other negotiable instruments to other employees of the municipality as deemed suitable. Number 18 is organization. Basically, town council shall deal with and control the administration of the municipality through the chief administrative officer, and as normal practice required that its directives be carried out through the offices of the CAO. And then there's a list of organizational structure. Professional evaluation requires an annual CAO evaluation on a date and time agreed to between the CAO and council. Number 20 is the severability clause, that if any clause of this bylaw is deemed to be illegal, then it will be struck, but all the rest of the bylaw will stand on its own. And the intention, number 21, is the intention of town council is that each section of this bylaw will stand on its own merit. 22 is the repeal. Bylaw 08-2016 and amendments are hereby approved. And number 23 is effective date. This bylaw shall come into force and effect on the date of the passing of the third and final reading.
Okay, thank you. Paul, we'll take a motion for the first reading. Councilor Riddick makes the motion. Paul, could you just give us a little bit of a history on the process of bringing this bylaw forward? Just a quick overview of how we came about doing it. And
we took a look at the bylaw 08-2016, and we looked at some other CAO bylaws to see what was out there, because we felt that bylaw 08-2016 had a lot of areas in it that were subject to interpretation. And this one, we decided that we would go with a more detailed bylaw to limit the amount of interpretation that there would actually be. So, and we looked at several other bylaws before we chose to go down this route.
Does anybody have any questions of Paul regarding this bylaw? Okay, Councilor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I don't have questions out. I just want to say that I've gone through it and I think it's a very good bylaw. I think the where you've expanded and et cetera is very appropriate. So I feel very comfortable with it. Thank you.
There was one change from the last time that we talked about it, and it came down to the performance. We took a date out and just moved it to just the decision of council when that process would start.
That's correct. The original draft bylaw that we discussed at the ledge meeting last week was April 30th date, and we took it out to just make it an agreement between council and the CAO as to when it would be done.
Councillor Lemko.
Yes, your worship. I noticed in the, the previous document, under number 8 was the responsibility and authority. And I noticed that piece is missing in this current.
Yes,
bylaw.
because there were two sections marked in responsibility and authority. One was section 5, I believe, and the other was section 8, and we just combined them all into one.
Okay. Thank you.
So all those in favor of the motion for the go ahead with the first reading? Carried. I'll take a motion for the second reading. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. I'll take a motion for unanimous consent. Councillor Bullock. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. And a motion for the third and final reading. Councillor Barry, thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried. I want to thank you, Paul. Yeah, I know you put a lot of work into that bylaw, and we appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I would also provide some thanks to Sandra for her assistance in preparing that bylaw. So
Thank you very much, Sandra. Okay, next unfinished business. And I just wanted to bring up, I know the last time we talked about the speed limits for alleys, we were sort of deterred that we would incur a lot of costs. I don't really see it that way now that I've researched some of it myself. I know in Edmonton and Calgary, they're at 15 kilometers an hour in their alleys. So correct me if I'm wrong, Director Rowe, you said we'd have to advertise at each end of town that we had a speed limit in our alleys? Is that what the information you brought back to us?
Yeah, that was my understanding through the Traffic Act, that we would have to, because the Traffic Act says that it's 50 kilometers on a roadway unless otherwise posted. So the only way, so playgrounds and parks, we can post for individuals, but if we were to do all alleys, that we would have to post it somewhere that people know. So that's just that was my interpretation of what Alberta Traffic had said.
So I've been very careful to look the last couple of times I was in Edmonton, and nowhere did I see entering Edmonton where it says that their speed limit is 15 kilometers an hour in their alleys, but it is. And I know that the city of Calgary and the city of Edmonton, if you ask for a sign in your alley, they'll put a sign up that says speed 15. And I've took some pictures of places in Calgary where it says that when you enter the alley. So I know that we were all in favor, we all said at 50 kilometers an hour in the alley, like you try to drive 50 kilometers an hour in an alley, it's really fast. So I know that was your interpretation of the Alberta transportation speed, but if Edmonton cannot advertise, I don't know why we would have to advertise at the edge, at the outskirts of our town. So go ahead, Councillor Curtis.
I just wanted to make it clear, was it, Director Rowe, was it advertisement that we were changing it and that was temporary, or was it that we would have to post that all the time?
No, I was under the understanding that we would have to have signs as people enter the community that the posted speed limits in alleyways would be X kilometers an hour.
Okay, well, obviously, they don't have that. So go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Your Worship. I don't recall in Edmonton. I've driven a fair number of streets over 30 years that I lived there, and quite a few alleys. But I wouldn't hold that back. If we had to put up a half dozen signs or so around to inform. I don't think that's going to be the thing that should stop us from doing it. I personally don't think we need to be doing 50 clicks in a back alley. I know 15 is moving pretty good down a back alley. If a person has to move faster than that, something's wrong. So I think that we should really seriously look at doing this.
So what is the process to change the speed limit in an alley? Do we need a bylaw that states that in the town of Vegreville, the speed in back alleys will be 15 kilometers an hour? Is that what we need?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have a traffic bylaw. We would just have to amend that bylaw to put a section in for the speed limit in alleyways.
Okay, well, as the chair of this meeting, I can't make the motion.
It would,
Councilor
we just
Bullock.
have to have a recommendation that I bring back an amended bylaw to a alleged meeting for discussion and then for final voting at a regular council meeting.
Okay, if you can come back, or Councilor Lemko?
I'll make that recommendation that you pursue that, Phil.
Hey, bring us back what you can find, Phil.
Okay.
So what'll be on the next ledge agenda, please?
I will make that happen.
Pretty soon it'll be spring and I'd like to get this done because just the other day, I seen somebody come flying up an alley and I was like, I can't believe that. So then I've been very careful. I go to Edmonton, I look for these signs and I don't see any. And you can Google any place you want and find out what the speed limit is in their alleys. So, I mean, it's not detective work. Most communities advertise it, so, but just not on signs. And the city of Calgary, they have, if you phone, they'll come and put a speed limit sign in your alley. So, okay, thank you very much. Next up, council reports, and we will start at the top. Councilor Rohr was at the top of mine, so I don't know. Start with you. Oh, sorry. Sandra, you have a question?
We have a motion on the floor.
No, we don't.
Oh, Councilor Lemko didn't make a motion that we,
He said he'd just like to make a recommendation
okay,
that Phil would bring this back.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Councilor Warwick.
So I had a few meetings. Unfortunately, a couple that I was supposed to have got canceled or postponed. So my meeting list was January 11th. I took part in the virtual meeting with MLA Armstrong Hominiuk. And I appreciated some of the information that was brought back, particularly in regards to some of our questions with Alberta Works. And I just have a little bit with that when we get into my upcoming meeting here. January 14th and the 20th, I took part to both days in plaque presentations with Vegreville Dental and our Bargain Bras, which is in a new location. And again, it seems like very well received from the owners of these different businesses that are liking that appreciation. On the 18th of January, I had a legislative meeting. And then today being the 24th, of course, today's regular council meeting, but we also had the FCSS meeting earlier. And just a few items I would want to highlight from the FCSS. There was 2 positions that they've had filled, which was the community program position, which will begin February 1st. And they also filled a housing and basic needs task force coordinator. Sorry, that one is for February 1st. Just a note on the housing and basic needs task force coordinator, that was done through a grant. That's not through current funding. It's just, so you know, that was through some of the work that independent group had. But just to let people know, those 2 positions have been filled. And just a couple of other highlights. I know we had talked about the need for some increased drivers, but just to kind of remind people that they are seeing at FCSS some increase in new clients with the Meals on Wheels. And one of the big things that they are seeing a lot of, again, in our discussion today was more economic impacts. As we discussed before, we think that some of people may have thought as some of the pandemic issues were going on that we had already seen those economic impacts. And in fact, as many government programs are ending or transitioning, there's actually seems to be more impacting people at this point. They also are looking at some of the work with their community volunteer program, which is upcoming. That's that income tax program that they take part in. And they did receive the COIN grant for $1,000 to assist with some of those costs. And of course, their programming has continued on to be very busy. They have a number of their programs, including the drone soccer. These are all proceeding forward. But the one other thing that I just wanted to highlight, because it ties into our conversation with MLA Armstrong, at that meeting, she had indicated that if we were still seeing issues in regards to our FCSS needing to cover a lot of the job stuff with the Alberta Works and problems with that, to let her know. So we did have a bit of a follow-up conversation. It does still seem like there's a problem with some of that disconnect, as far as people are still calling the local office, which was kind of what was directed to us. And upon calling, they are still being directed back provincially. So to the provincial number. The provincial number seems to still be busy when it's being called. And there is another issue that has arisen where the line through Alberta Works, the admin, when you call in, also indicates that it's the line that could help you deal with persons with disabilities. And when you call the provincial line for the persons with disabilities, they're transferring it back to our local. And when it goes back here, they're saying, you're not supposed to call in here, it goes provincial. So there's still an issue with that. So Teresa through the FCSS is going to write us an overview email, and then we'll send that to MLA Armstrong Hommick, because she had made that offer that if we brought it forward, she'd follow up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And that's all I have.
Okay, so I have a question.
Sure.
The local staff,
Yeah.
the local staff of Alberta Supports are no longer in the office. They were instructed by the MLA to be available for phone calls and assisting the clients through that. And when the clients are phoning that number, they're getting the same response they had in the past.
So she indicated some improvement in the fact that it does seem that there is some local, but it does still seem that people are being directed back, is what she said still, that they're still finding some that are calling in and are still being routed back to that provincial number. The other major problem that's coming in is that when they are hooking them up with a caseworker, and that caseworker is reaching out to them, they're sending it like an email, almost without a phone number that they can get back to an individual person. So if they need to reply or do follow-up information, or don't quite understand what was maybe said to them, that they don't have a direct number they can call back. It's like they have to start the process again. So they're going back and waiting on a line. So there still seems to be a bit of a disconnect with that. But the other new issue that was brought to us today was this issue in regards to persons with disabilities, where it was actually transferred from the provincial line out here. And when somebody picked up here, it was told to them that they aren't to call here, they're to call back provincial. So it still seems like there is a disconnect. And I know it's under my report, but Justin or Councillor Curtis, sorry, is that kind of the same thing? That's sort of the understanding you got from our overview with Teresa today, right?
It isn't. In our last housing basic needs meeting, Janet, who is an employee for Alberta Supports, was there. And it seemed to me that if they were an existing client, so that if they'd already gone through the 1-800 number and got a representative, then it was more easy for them to get a hold of the individual person. But prior to that, it doesn't seem like it's moved very, very much further as far as getting hold of a local representative.
So
yeah, I just wanted to bring Councillor Curtis, because he was at the housing task force meeting. I wasn't at that one, but this was just, from the FCSS today a bit.
Councillor Curtis, a representative, somebody representing Alberta Supports was at the meeting and heard what the problems are in the local, in Vegreville, to reach the office or the employees after they were instructed by the MLA to get to work, to start answering the phones. And they recognize that they're not doing it?
Well, this is the answer that was given, is that if the person has gotten a representative, if they've gone through the 1-800 processor already have a representative from Vegreville, that yes, they can contact them directly and there's means for that. But unless you have a caseworker, let's say, or a representative, from what I was told, is that's still not available.
So we just asked Teresa to give us kind of an overview of what it is currently that she's still noticing for issues, and then we'll bring it back to the MLA, because she had made that offer that if we had any feedback that she was happy to have it sent over to her. So we're going to do that, because it just seems like it's for lack of better words, it seems like people within the department don't know what's going on back and forth within them. And there is still people that are answering the phone, from our understanding, that are answering the phone and basically saying, why are you calling into this number? That you should be calling the 1-800 number. And that's not caseworker specific, but still we're being told that that's the administrative answer that people are getting on the first phone call. So I still see that as a large problem. And to date, the other question that has been asked of us to ask forward is, what plan have you put in place to deal with the issue in regards to them needing ability to phone? Because that's still the huge issue. They still need the ability to call in, and with there not being any ability for them to go in here, they're still coming to FCSSs. So that's the next question they've asked us to put forward, to say, what plan have you put in place? Because if you haven't had any ability, it still means that our FCSS needs to be open to them to come in and make these calls often.
Well, hopefully the Teresa will get this ready in the next day or two, and we'll get to the MLA.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Bullock.
Yes, okay. On my reports, January 12th, I was at a meeting with Community Association for Lasting Success. And what's coming up for them is the Family Literacy Day outdoor games and activities. That's coming up this Saturday at the Lions Club Splash Park behind the library. And looking for participation from local residents and everybody to come out this Saturday. Coming up on January 27th, January 27th to March 17th, they also have a Bear Bags online program. Each week, families take home a bear bag to do together with journaling activities. And at the end of the session, families will have their own bonded journal to share for years to come. People can contact CALS for more information or look them up on their Facebook page as well. January 18th, our legislative committee meeting. January 19th, I virtually attended Alberta Municipalities, Alberta Provincial Police Services webinar. And on January 20th, recorded Talk of the Town session, and a guest was CALS for that. And on January 24th, today, we did some business plaque presentations at Saskew Mechanical and for taxi service, Vegreville taxi service. And also today, I met the new manager of the Vegreville and District Chamber of Commerce, Roxanne Bordeniuk. So a very nice lady. First time I met her, actually. So everyone will be getting to know her shortly. And tonight's council meeting. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Curtis.
For me, starting off January 11th, I took the municipal elected official online course, which is very similar to the basic emergency course. It's also required for us to take, so some more good information there. January 17th, we had the Vegreville Tourism Association Board. I have a few snippets from that. One thing that was brought up, and I brought up at the Ledge meeting as well, Young Parts, RV Parts is looking for somebody to take over the haunted hike. They have their parts and supplies and the names, the actual name of the haunted hike for sale as well. So they're looking for another maybe nonprofit in the community or anybody who's willing to take that on. It's a really big event for Vegreville, bring some people to town. So they're looking for some storage possibly for the time being until they can have that sold. Family Day coming up. They're looking for some outdoor activities. Outdoor curling is one that they're throwing around as one of their activities. And again, COVID depending. Looking into the future here, we have May 30th. They're looking at a possible circus extravaganza coming to Vegreville. I'm not sure the exact details on that. That's something that's in the beginning stages of planning. So looking forward to hearing about what that's all about. And the 130-year heritage event, or Ukrainian heritage event, which is going to be a regional partnership between Mundare and Andrew Lamont. So that's going to be something that's coming up this summer. And I mentioned to Councillor Barry that that's a good thing for the new VEG Regional Historic Society to get involved in. The Pisanka Park markets as well, they're planning early stages, but for June as well. And that's something that brings a lot of people to town, and it's a lot of fun for the families. And then another Meet East of Edmonton food event that might be coming up for the summer as well. So there's lots of stuff on the docket, which is nice to see that things are getting planned in the early stages. So that's really good. And that's what came out of the tourism board meeting. Next, we had the legislative meeting on the 18th. And then as Councillor Roy was talking about, we discussed the Housing and Basic Needs Task Force meeting on the 19th, as well the Alberta Provincial Police Service meeting we had, which was a pretty good get together of all the Alberta municipalities. We got to break out into some rooms and discuss the possibility of the police service coming to Alberta. And again, it's still in the planning stages for that, and we need a lot more detail. Today, we had our FCSS advisory board meeting. And then we have our council meeting today as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Rudick.
I will hope that my dogs don't bark like they did through everybody else's reports. January 11th, we met with MLA Hominiuk, and it was great to be able to highlight some of our issues that we have locally in Vegreville and be able to highlight those directly to her so that we can continue to have a direct link to the province, because there are some things that we continue to have some challenges with. So appreciate that opportunity. Plaque presentations with colleagues on the 14th to Vegreville Dental. January 17th, there was a site visit for a new doctor, Dr. Fayanju, and he will be moving to Vegreville after he completes his assessment. So I'm happy to have Councillor Barry and some members from the PCN and our Health Professionals Attraction Retention Committee to be able to meet with him and hear some of the, not concerns, the wishes that Dr. Fayanju and his family might have as they move to Vegreville, and facilitate Dr. Stridham's site tour at the hospital. January 18th, our legislative committee meeting. January 19th was the library meeting. And that was the last meeting of our current chair, former councillor and longtime resident, Mr. Mike Cooper, finished off that meeting as the chair of the library board, and our new chair will be Murray Armitage. And we've got two vice chairs, London Wiley and Pauline Helena, will be taking on that role together. So it's great. We've got some youth and vitality and experience to be able to lead that forward the upcoming year. There are some programming changes that are coming up for youth. Over the winter break, they did have some programs for teenagers, and they continue to have some after-school programming coming forward in February. Winter reading program and the checkouts from the library are up from 2020. That would seem reasonable considering the number of days that they're open has increased, and they're looking to increase that as well as COVID has changed some of their operations. And there have been a lot of online offerings. And so there will be also some different programming online that will be ongoing, because it facilitates the ability for people to be able to join at any time. So you can take a look. There will be potentially an online book club, some teen programming, and they continue to try to find ways to be able to have a Friday offering for the teenage youth bracket, to make sure that these kids have a way to be able to gather safely with their peers and try to figure out how to do that. Happy to join in right after that to the Alberta municipalities meeting about the Alberta Provincial Police Service that is proposed by the Alberta government. Again, we were in different breakout rooms, and I was fortunate enough to go into the finances, because I think that might be the one that everybody is most concerned, or they should be most concerned about. A lot of the issues ranging from the City of Edmonton down to Marwayne and every other size of community in between. There wasn't a single elected official in that room. I guess there was probably 80 of us in that room that was in favor of this proposed model, because it doesn't answer the concerns that many of us have in terms of the justice application. not so much the policing. And right across the board, there were some very concerned points of view in terms of costs that weren't delineated in the PricewaterhouseCoopers report, and they have not been factored in. So at the base of it, it will cost more, and there's no guarantee that there will be any improved policing or justice measures that communities are looking for. So really happy that we had that opportunity, and I look forward to being able to attend some of the provincial meetings that are being held to talk about that. And happy to be able to see Central Taxi today, as well as Saskia Mechanical, to be able to welcome and encourage them in their new locations and operations and tonight's council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. And before I forget, on behalf of residents and council, I'd like to thank outgoing chair Mike Cooper for his 2 years at the library, and good job well done. Next up, Councillor Lemko.
Thank you, Your Worship. January 11th, I was fortunate enough to sit in on the Zoom call with MLA Homanyuk. And under that, I'd like to commend Councillor Warawa for her tireless work at advocating for the citizens and people who use Alberta Works. And it goes back to when I was on FCSS with Councillor Warawa and her chairing of that FCSS committee. But to take on something like that and sit in those meetings and advocate to the strength you're doing, I'm starting to see some results actually, and good on you for doing that and sticking to your guns. And now you got support from Councillor Curtis, and we'll get that place opened by the looks of it. January 17th, I attended the Tourism Advisory Board, and Councillor Curtis spoke on that. The only thing I'd add to that is that we reviewed the bylaws that we have, and we're going to be bringing those forth to make it more usable for a tourism board than they were in the past. The January 18th was the Ledge meeting. The 20th, I was fortunate enough to present a plaque along with fellow councillors to Bargain Bras. Interesting place. How that lady has that set up there from the back alley entrance. If you even just to drive by and have a look at how she's got that, that's pretty cool. It's nice to see that we're decorating our alleys for business too. So the 24th, today, I was fortunate enough to present a plaque with fellow members of council to Vegreville Central Taxi, and I was also at the Saskia Mechanical photo shoot. And tonight's council meeting. That's my report, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I was also in at a number of those plaque presentations, so I'll just skip past them. On January 11th, I started out the day on a virtual meeting with the Vegreville Community Health Services Awareness Group that I was not too familiar with. So it's going to be, there's a number of different committees that are just starting up for me now. And I'm hoping that we'll be having meetings in the near future, and I'll be able to get into this a little bit more. I'm getting information sent to me now straight to my email. So it was an interesting meeting, but I'm going to have to learn a lot on that area. Right after that, I also joined the virtual meeting with the MLA. I thought it was quite informative. On January the 17th, I was with Councillor Rudick and a couple of other citizens, and we went to the hospital in order to meet the new doctor who is coming there. And it was a very interesting meeting, and I'm hoping that we'll soon be able to get that new doctor in town. But it's still quite stressful there at the hospital. I got to experience firsthand of coming into the facility and putting on booties so that I could keep the place clean, and changing, getting a new mask and getting an entire face shield. Walking around that way all day by these people that are working in there must be quite stressful. I found it very uncomfortable to have to be wearing so much gear just to try and go and meet a few people. So hopefully that Omicron gets out of here soon. On the 18th, I actually went on to a webinar. Its title is a little bit different than what you would think. It was 4 Steps to Simplifying the Annual CEO Evaluation. And it was actually mainly geared to business, but for our own incoming CAO, I think there were some good pointers there, and I'll put some notes together and discuss them with council before we get into really actually very soon, so that we can really get off on this right foot, because their step number 1 was everybody has to be involved. So if we're going to do an evaluation of our CAO, we set it up with them, and then we move forward from there, so that day 1 of the evaluation starts when we're all on the same page. So I did find that their webinar was quite interesting, though. The Ledge meeting on the 18th as well. On January the 20th, it was our first ever planning meeting. It was our Vegreville Regional Historic Society. I met with Director Phil Rowe, and we fleshed out some ideas. He had some good comments for setting up, and we're just on the verge of trying to get this really going now and getting out to the media and getting people encouraged. I think that shortly after that meeting, I bumped into a member that was with the museum for quite some time, and he's quite interested in some of the aspects that we're proposing, particularly, if we can maintain a committee there that, a subcommittee that can look at artifact maintenance and restoration to help out the museum in that aspect of it, and ambassadors and et cetera. So we'll be getting more information out on that. We're just on the start. I think it's going to take us several months to really try and pull things together, but we're looking at trying to look at when we can start trying to see where our first meeting would be with the public. On the Saturday the 22nd, I took the time to virtually join the Emerald documentary series. As you're aware, the Vermilion River Watershed Alliance that I'm chair of was successful in winning the Emerald Award this year for the Shared Footprints, which was a very prestigious award. It's really actually the biggest one that they give out. And they came this summer, and they interviewed me quickly in council chambers. And when I saw the video feedback of it, it's unfortunate we didn't have the new logo up on the wall behind me for Vegreville. But anyway, I was part of it. And then we went to the museum, and our coordinator did an excellent job. And then they had one of our landowners talking about conservation in the area. And they had some really good footage of the water basin. They did an excellent job. And all of the other videos of all the other award winners was excellently done as well. And I'll be getting the links to that in the near future, and I'll share it with council. It's actually very, very good. It goes to show what this environmental group is actually doing, the Emerald Foundation. And then I was also involved in the plaques today, and then just our regular council, and that'll be my meeting or my report for right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I attended the January 11th with their MLA. It was a good meeting. It was nice to have the dialogue started up again and moving forward. And I hope we can start doing this at least every quarter with her. On the January the 12th, Bob, our economic development manager, myself, had a conversation with CIHC and Bobby Zamner and his son. And Bob has been in the hemp business for a long time, and he was telling us about some new products he's got coming online, and he still feels that Vegreville is the best place for this industry to get started. So we had a very good conversation. And then later that day, Bob and myself met with all the board of directors for HFPC, another hemp company that's we've been negotiating with here on a facility that they want to put up in town. And the conversation went fairly good. And we're moving forward there. The 13th, I had a meeting of the John Espetus Water Commission. On the 18th, we had an introduction meeting that MLA Hominick set up for us. And in that meeting, it was with mostly Alberta Innovates and well, we had Laura, the CAO, Laura Kilchrist, and Steve McMahon was there, and Doug Mills and myself, and it was a very productive meeting. Laura, give us some insight on what's going on with Alberta Innovates and some stuff that's coming up in the next little while. And then we broke off and had another meeting with Steve McMahon, and already his employees have reached out to Bob a few different times, and we're setting up some other meetings moving forward. So it was a very good time to have the meeting with them. And then we had the LEDS meeting that same day. And then on the 19th, Bob and myself and Karina had a meeting with Inca. Paul's his name, and they're another big player in the hemp business, and they're looking at Vegreville too. So we had a very interested meeting and site selection criteria and what their needs would be for utilities and stuff. So that was a very good that day. And then on the 21st, I had a meeting with Chris Nash, and he's the head of the Heartland Association, and just to find out what's going on in the Heartland right now. And it worked out very well. Jackie set that up again, or MLA Hominick. And that was we've had quite a few meetings. She's been introducing us to a lot of people. And then we had, of course, the police, the provincial police. The room I was in didn't really matter what the topic was. It was everybody was upset, and the money was a big issue. So that's where that ended up. What else we got here? So I've had a few other meetings with some other Alberta Transportation, MLA Hominick, myself and Bob talked to the chair and the vice chair, talked about large trucks and the shortage of truck drivers. And of course, MLA Hominick is always concerned about women in trades and how to get more women involved in this industry, and trying to bring some accreditation to the industry, and maybe looking at maybe setting something up here that can help train these drivers. And so that conversation is ongoing right now. And like I said, it was a very good meeting, and just to find out what the challenges are in that industry, because if it's $10,000 and a course over a few months, there's no guarantee to have a job when you're done. And so I think the government has to do something there pretty soon and set it up almost like a trade, and you take the steps like a journeyman to get through that. So, and then we had our plaques presentations today, and which were very good. And this afternoon we had another meeting, MLA Hominick, Bob, and myself with Lorraine Royer, and Lorraine is with Inter Pipeline. They're building the new plant in the Heartland there for those propylene pellets that will be coming online this summer. It's actually Brookfield bought them out. They're no longer a private traded company. They're a public. They took them back public. And we're just talking about the synergies and how Vegreville may fit in there. And maybe there'll be some value added jobs. Local entrepreneurs will be using their product, molding the plastics and stuff. It was a very good meeting, and we're going to reach out and have another conversation with her. So had a pretty busy last couple of weeks with MLA Hominick and introducing us to a lot of different people that we didn't know. So it worked out well. And that's my report. So is there any other business of council? Nothing I forgot, which is good. Okay, we need to go into closed session to discuss something that would be harmful to economics and other interests of a public body. So take a motion to go into closed session.